Hello and welcome back, and that is right, today we are revisiting the subject of routers. We've already compared QNAP and Synology's hardware routers and the QuRouter and the RT6600AX, and today I want to talk about software. We're going to be looking at QRouter on the QNAP platform and comparing it against the latest revision of Synology's Router Manager, SRM 1.3, and in today's video we're using both of their respective Wi-Fi 6 routers, as you can see there, just above me on the screen, and we're going to be going through a number of their features and the way you can navigate them, how user-friendly they are, what features they offer, what features they don't, and ultimately I hope this video helps you understand which one of them provides the better software solution for you, because honestly they both bring a lot of stuff to the table, but they also bring very unique qualities that may benefit different kinds of users. Now, I will refer from time to time to Wi-Fi 6, the LAN connections of 2.5 GBE or 10 GBE on this system, but I'm going to try my hardest to stick predominantly to the section of software and navigation, the GUI and the services that are included. So if you want to learn more about the hardware of these devices, I have already made a hardware comparison of the QuRouter and the 6600AX in another video. This is going to be as much as possible about the software, but let's crack on. So as you can see, this is how they both look when you access them here via your web browser. I'm using Edge today. I'm only using that just because Chrome we're using for a different video, and on the left hand side of the screen, at least as far as I can see it, I can see QuRouter there. Now we are using the latest version of their software, version 2.1.5, and in the case of the Synology, we are using SRM 1.3. So both of them using the latest revision of their respective software. And straight away, you can probably see a big difference between them. Much like when we've compared Synology and QNAP in the past, what you're seeing here on screen is a very different attitude to the user experience and browsing. So immediately when we look at the QNAP, anyone that's ever dealt with a router or switch from companies like Netgear or Thomson or Cisco or D-Link or TP-Link or anyone is going to be very familiar with this layout. It's a little bit WordPress, and you've got the menu structure there on the left. You can hide that menu if you choose, and you've basically got all your navigation options all listed there on the side of the screen. They break down into breadcrumb style, and they're all kind of listed there on the side with the configuration and system options there on the bottom. Now, in the case of the Synology, they've gone a very different route. They've emulated a lot of what they've learned in the user experience of DSM and kind of emulated that quite significantly here in SRM 1.3. So again, you've got the menu option there at the top. You can navigate those quite nice and quickly. You've also got a desktop. You can, if you choose to, just drag and drop items there just as you might expect. It feels quite responsive, and it does exactly what I want it to do. If I go into the control panel there, I can configure a lot of options, create users if I choose, and manage a lot of the features and services of the device quite quickly there. Now, between the two of them, it's going to be very hard to say which one's more intuitive, largely because users are different. There's a lot of users, particularly networking professionals, who upon logging into a router or a switch are going to prefer the QNAP side because it's laid out in their language. It's laid out the way they expect these things to be. To put it into perspective, imagine you were logging into your ISP router, and don't look at either of these two screens. If I said to you, look at the settings menu, your eyes would have darted downwards and left. It's just intuitive. It's the way networks and switches are presented in their graphical user interface. You always find the settings option on the bottom left, and if I asked you to log out, your eyes would have darted to the top right. Now, what Synology are doing is they're using the user-friendly nature of DSM. They've gone in the way of going, you don't need to have had a lot of experience of network switches. You just need to have used a computer. Heavily stylized on things like Mac OS and Android and even Windows. That's the way they've gone with their design. There's very little text. As you can see, the QNAP side already sends a lot of information your way. On the other hand, a lot of, I hate seagulls, a lot of different techie users would quite like immediately upon logging into the device, seeing what the WAN configuration is, knowing a lot more about if they've created virtual networks or virtual WANs, seeing what connected devices are there, seeing if the internet's live, and if it's not, how to fix it. they're going to like and prefer to have this information immediately apparent. Whereas on the Synology, you will have to log in. You've got one option to go into wired networks and wider networks, and you've got one dedicated to wireless connectivity there. So again, the configuration options are there and navigation options are there, but it's just an extra couple of clicks. It's not the end of the world though, is it? Now, moving slightly away from navigation, let's go straight away on both of them into how they both handle and display network information. So as you can see on the QNAP side, we've got that topographical list there. We've also got an image there of the router in question showing off the ports and which ones are currently active. On the Synology, we go into the network center and we can see network activity along with CPU and memory and hardware resources, and we can dig in and find the port status. But weirdly, for a Synology product, it's nowhere near as graphical as that of the QNAP. Now again, we can break it down, go into these side options here, sort of navigate all those bits and bobs and where the configuration options start to appear. But weirdly, I'm kind of surprised it's as wordy as it is. And I know obviously we're talking about routers, it's a very hard topic to dumb down because, you know, you dumb down too far and your security's at risk. But still, I'm surprised they couldn't come up with a simple one screen here of all of the ports without having me having to need to dig in. Even then, I can't see a lot of information there, and certainly from this screen, I can't configure these ports. If I want to configure the ports, I'm going to have to remember which one I've got connected to a LAN or a WAN, then make my way into the local network, and then go from there. It's quite surprising that it's like that on the Synology. Now, when it comes to creating a new network, hands down, it's easier on the Synology. Just to give you a bit of perspective, I'm going to go ahead and create a new LAN, a new network here on the QNAP. So I'm going to go ahead and select a port. So let's go for it there. Let's create our new network, go into one of these ports and start creating it from there. So again, I'm going to create our new virtual LAN. We're going to add a new VLAN there. We could have gone straight into those settings there. Create it. From here, we have to give it an ID. So we'll give it a number, 111. From there, give it a description, put test. Then we have to give it an IP. So we have to manually enter an IP there, which again, if you're not techie, this may not come as easy to you as it might do to others. So again, we enter an MTU, which is quite nice to be able to open up how it goes. Again, we can enable DHCP services if we choose. And then from there, we can go ahead and create our new network there. As you can see, we've got a conflict, unfortunately. Now I've corrected that error, we can go ahead and create that virtual network there. Now, there was a lot of bits of knowledge there that you may not be aware of. I know I've made a couple of errors there on the server IP versus VLAN IP, but still, I've created that network and it felt easy to me, but it might not feel easy if you don't know much about networks. Now, if we move over to the Synology side, we're going to create a new virtual network. We're going to click the Create button. From there, give it a network name, give it an identity. Oh no, test 2. Click Next. Do we want to set up an SSID? Yes, why not? Stop being angry at me for putting the wrong password in there. And that's it. We've created our new virtual network and we've attached a brand new SSID to it. And short of my typos there, how easy was that? It was 3 screens. It was nothing. So yes, the QNAP does present it as a single screen if you want to create a virtual LAN, but it doesn't help you very much. There's no helping options here on the side. The only helping option it presents is to do with MTU to open up jumbo frames. That's it. And a lot of you aren't even going to know what that means. So you see what I mean about the ease of use that the SRM platform is bringing. Now, we can counter that point with some other network advantages that the QNAP clearly brings. For a start, you can enable port trunking. So if you choose to, on the QNAP side of things, you can say, right, I want this port to trunk with another port. Perhaps I won't do it with the active LAN port there. But what we can do is create a trunked port with that new virtual LAN ID, wallop. And then what I can do is go into another port there and attach it to that trunk. Again, boom. We can now trunk those ports. We've got a bit of link aggregation up and running. So again, lovely stuff, and that's not an option that's open to us here on the Synology. So a lot of you that are going to be utilizing network attached storage, utilizing combined ports, are really going to see the advantages in that. Now, we mentioned earlier on about wireless connectivity and SSIDs. Let's have a little look about how both of these platforms handle SSIDs. So on the Synology, unsurprisingly, there's Wi-Fi Connect. It's all there on the right-hand side of the screen. If we go into wireless access points here on the QNAP, we can see these list of SSIDs there. So first thing, let's look at the guest network on offer from both of these platforms. So for example, on the QNAP, we can open up the guest network here, and this is going to be one that you might use for people visiting your premises, or just friends or family that are popping by. You can create this guest wireless network, give it a password, configure the security protocol. It only goes as high as WPA2 though, bear in mind, and that's really it. Add a password of your choosing and you can create the guest Wi-Fi network. Now in the case of the Synology, once we make our way into the Wi-Fi Connect area, we can see there that the guest network is just ready to go. We just need to click it on down there. But there's a little bit more configuration open to you. So for example, if we make our way into the selection of options here, there's the usual stuff where we can assign a different Wi-Fi password, and we can even assign with that Wi-Fi on the guest account all the way up to WPA3, so a higher level of encryption protocol available to it there. On top of that, quite interestingly, is you can create a guest portal. That's right, you can add your own customized login window where you can add any kind of message there on screen that your visitors will see. So if we choose to, we can get rid of that, create a brand new background, we'll grab something from there, we'll grab an image. Do you know what? We'll just go with a picture of a QNAP. Why not? We can go for it from there. That will be our background. Click apply, and now our guest network has a background there for us to visit. On top of that, we can go for client isolation to make sure that that connected Wi-Fi user can't interfere with anything else on the network. We can set a schedule on that Wi-Fi, guest Wi-Fi, and more. And again, there's a lot more configuration than I would have expected on a Synology product there. Now, heading back into the guest network there on the QNAP, again, we can go into the guest network settings, and that's your lot. Not a vast amount of configuration options, are there? And it's really surprising. Again, we've got those virtual networks down. We're going to create a brand new SSID shortly, but I'm kind of surprised that there isn't more configuration options there on the Wi-Fi network. Now, if we head back into how both of these systems allow us to create an SSID from scratch, in the Synology area here, we can go ahead and create our brand new Wi-Fi point there. And again, we can give it a name. We're just going to call it test222. Again, we don't have to add a password. Oh no, apparently we do. We create a password there, click apply, and I believe we've just created our new SSID. We're just going to let that count in. Creating more Wi-Fi points and SSIDs, I should say, on the QNAP is just not quite as straightforward. And I think it's a real shame because of all the features and services that people are going to be utilizing on a router, particularly a premium router, one of the easiest and probably more common ones is creating different Wi-Fi networks for devices. And I'm kind of surprised that although the LAN overview on this QNAP device is pretty much way ahead in terms of what you can do, and of course the physical connections that are on offer, and with things like lag being supported, I'm kind of really surprised how they've kind of dumbed down a little bit there on the wireless connectivity overall between the two of them. So moving forward from that, we can talk a little bit about the USB ports on both of these devices because it is handled in very different ways. In the case of the QNAP, you can make your way into how the system handles USB devices, and a connected USB drive that goes into one of those ports can be accessed via FTP. So you can create a server link, a file server link that's more of a breadcrumb white screen. You can access the files and download, but that's really all you can do. There's not a vast amount more than that you can do. You can limit some of the devices that can connect to it, but that's really about your lot. Whereas on the Synology side of things, you can go ahead and take things quite far. You can go ahead and obviously connect a mobile phone, one of the supported ones for allow a failover connection, to use a 4G Wi-Fi connection from your mobile and add that to your router. You can also use some mobile dongles, although the supported list of USB dongles isn't exactly huge. But one of the best things you can do with that port is to take advantage of file management. So not only can you install Download Station and install other applications such as Media Server that allow you to stream multimedia throughout your connected network, wirelessly or wired, but on top of that, you've got File Station. That is the full File Station application from Synology. You can use DS File for mobile there, and you can access the files on board. Indeed, you can go ahead, select a file. I'm going into some photos, double click the photo, and you can access them. Again, you can even scrape some of the metadata from these photos. So again, you've got all that information from where the photo was taken, lots of that information that's embedded in the metadata there. You can't take advantage of, AI-powered photo recognition, but you've got those options. And again, if you're worried about thumbnails, you can go ahead, have it in thumbnails, and it will start generating the thumbnails there in the background. Anyone that's ever used a NAS, you'll know about this. You can copy, you can paste, you can share files really easily, find out more information about them, grant access to different users, and again, create a share link. So again, create a share link, give it a time, give it a password protection, create 3D barcodes, validity periods. It's all built in. You can archive files, you can extract zips. It's all built in there. So Synology have really lended a lot of their kind of DSM and NAS based knowledge there to this platform in terms of that USB. And these are things that are just weirdly absent on the QNAP side. It's been in the market longer, but their software there, although their router software is younger than SRM. SRM has now been around since 2018. It's only the hardware that's newer. I'm kind of surprised that QNAP didn't lend some of that NAS knowledge and some of their user interface kind of attitude to user experience from QTS and lend it into QRouter, whereas what I see from QRouter here is more like a traditional router or switch. It's still good, and there's still lots of switch capabilities built into the QHORA and QRouter system, but some people aren't going to want that, whereas SRM is being lots of different things and managing to do it and remain quite user-friendly. Now, another area to touch on is parental controls. A lot of people that buy premium routers for the home are doing it because they want to have a better control of the devices in their network. Maybe they've got staff, maybe they've got younger people in their household, children or whatever, and they want to keep a lid on things or keep control of things to make sure that bad things don't end up in front of people that shouldn't see them. Now, on the QNAP side, we've got traditional parental controls here. We can create roles. If we choose, we can add domains that we may want to get rid of, and we can also enable that filter to be a little bit more specific, with different websites having their own safe search settings imposed immediately. And even if they're logged in under their respective, for example, Google account, in this case, they won't be able to supersede the safe search settings. Indeed, you can view different devices that are connected on your local area network, such as the laptop that I'm using for today's video, and then from there, you can sort of look at the information about the connected client, rename it, block it if you choose, and that's really the extent to what you can do. You can create new users if you choose to log into the NAS, but that's really it. That's the full extent. The parental controls there feel a little basic. Now, I say basic because, two reasons really. One, a lot of router providers that provide premium routers either provide slightly more streamed back parental controls like the ones you're seeing here, or they produce paid parental controls that are subscription based with every month. Several of the routers that I've reviewed in the past include parental controls behind a subscription service. Now, the Synology includes Safe Search, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. I believe Safe Search to almost completely justify the cost of a Synology router, and I know that seems tremendously biased, but Safe Search allows you to not only see the devices that are connected to a device, but you can create quite intense profiles for them. So for example, if I create a brand new profile here, this will be a user profile. I can go ahead and this user, give them a name. If I choose to, upload a photo. So if I go into my footage settings there, and then from there, in the footage settings, find a photo of me. So we'll put Robbie there. I'm sure there's some old photos of me from an old video. So let's go ahead and find Robbie. From there, find a photo of me, stick it in there, click apply, click next. Then this person, I can say that what devices that are on the network they own. As devices are constantly connected to the device, they'll appear here in the history. So now I'm saying this laptop that I'm on belongs to Robbie. And again, if there's multiple kids in the house or family members or whatever, you can assign these devices one by one to different accounts. So I've created this account now, and this user, as you can see, you can make sure that safe access, if they are an admin, can bypass it. On top of that, from this point, I can now apply a web filter. So again, I can use pre-made web filters or create my own that adds different websites if I choose. Add that, and then that imposes that on not only this user, but all of this user's devices that I add over time. Then you can create the access request, so you can make sure that if a person is banned from certain websites or services and they try to access them, an admin can be notified, and then they can choose whether to accept them or reject them. Then you've got block page styles, so you can have a big warning screen. So if you've got kids and you don't want them going to certain websites, you can have a customized screen that warns them against going there. From there, of course, you can then start creating different activities. So say this user here, I can choose when this user is allowed to access the internet. I can say they can only access the internet on all of their devices at a certain time of day. On top of that, I can then choose how much time they're allowed on the internet. So I can say they're allowed 2 hours a day if I choose. And again, it can be customized to different days of the week based on their homework or whatever. Apply those web filters, of course. And again, lots of customization that we can do there. And we can enable that safe search once again to more websites as well. There's just a lot more configurations and options. And remember, if your child or your employee has a laptop and a phone, you can apply these settings so they affect both. You can set up a 2-hour limit that affects both of them. They can't just have 2 hours and 2 hours. If they use 2 hours up on this device, they're not going to get anything on that device. And adding devices is really, really easy. And again, anytime you can customize these accounts, add devices and more. Really, really quick stuff. And it's kind of the shining beacon of this platform. It's incredibly useful, and there's a lot of configuration that can be applied. And it's something I've not really seen on offer from many other platforms. And I'm kind of really surprised that QNAP hasn't adapted the parental controls just a little bit, because there's a lot more control on their NAS platform than here. It's perfunctory. It gives exactly, the bare minimum, and it will set up as a parental control. It's very strict. It's very black and white. But the Synology gives you a lot of control and customization and dynamic control on its parental controls that I think a lot of parents and employers are really going to appreciate on their network. It may not be as customizable as the QNAP, but there's a lot of element of customization there within those individual users rather than the local network as a whole. Now, we can talk about security, of course. Both of these systems, support a wide variety of security protocols. They both support up to WPA3, although it's not available on the guest network there on the QNAP. They both allow utilization of VPNs, although I would add that in the case of the Synology, you do get a license for QVPN included with your router. You get one license included with it. In the case of the, not QVPN, VPN Plus, in the case of the QNAP, you can attach existing VPNs that you may already own and start adding those services to this one, but you don't get any included for free. But what you do get on the QNAP is QWAN, which anyone that's ever used SD-WAN in a business where you've got multiple sites that need to communicate with kind of a degree of control, but also dynamic priority of service, you're going to see the benefits in that. Again, there is a limit to how much of it is free, but anyone that ever embraces SD-WAN in their business or their priority of services are probably going to enjoy that. But although the Synology VPN support isn't, quite as extensive as a traditional paid subscription VPN, there's still a lot of site-to-site kind of benefits of that free license that are worth touching on. And when you've got things like inbuilt threat protection on both of these that is configurable in different ways, I think they both provide a little bit of different security protocol to the party, even if I think some users have started associating QNAP's NAS in 2019 and 2020 negatively in conjunction with ransomware and therefore security concerns. And I think that's something QNAP still need to work on. We've never seen anything affect their router series yet, and we've not seen anything affect Synology's platform yet in terms of ransomware and vulnerabilities on their router platforms. But still, nonetheless, I think Synology is still kind of leading the race in terms of these two brands, in terms of their profile online when it comes to things like network security there. Between the two of them, the controls, there's a way more high range of controls available to you in QRouter, I believe, in terms of router management. Even if you look through them, there's a lot more networky switch-based options available on the QNAP platform, whereas the Synology seems like router plus. It's some of the small things that are attached that are switch capable. Again, things like failover, things like virtual LAN creation, but it does a better job of presenting the fewer things that it might bring to you. And some of the featured stuff from Synology, again, like safe access, really can't be undersold. They're very, very useful features. And again, if you're new to routers, you're new to networking, you're going to vibe with the Synology side. You just are. It's way more user-friendly, albeit a little bit feature light in the network sense. The QNAP side just has more network control, but it's going to bombard you very early doors. And if you don't have a big tech knowledge behind you, it doesn't do a great job of hints and tips, certainly. But this has been QRouter versus SRM. We're going to be doing some performance testing between these two routers very, very soon in the third part of this series. If you have found this video helpful, do chuck me a like down there. It helps me understand what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. Click subscribe to stay tuned for that third part. We talk more and more about these routers, and we are going to introduce a couple of D-Link routers into the mix that are Wi-Fi 6. As, let's face it, as much as we talk about the Wi-Fi 6 routers from these two brands, they're by no means the dominant force in the router market. And I think companies like Asus and D-Link have got some great Wi-Fi 6 hardware out there, and it's going to be interesting to see if their software can live up to it too. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Use the free advice section linked in the description if you need more help. Other than that, I will see you next time.